Welcome back to the Art of Action Figures. On this episode, I'll be unboxing and giving my impressions of the Demoniacal Fit Martialist Forever figure. Demoniacal Fit is a third-party figure arts brand, and that's why you don't see any official Bandai, Tamashii, Dragon Ball, any kind of branding like that on this box, but you can clearly tell this is base form Goku, and in particular, this is a 3.0 body for base form Goku. Martialist Forever here is actually the second third-party 3.0 Goku figure to come out in 2023. The first was Kong Studios' Super Saiyan 3 3.0 Goku, who featured in a couple of prior episodes, both a review for this figure himself, as well as the 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0 body type comparison video. So go check those out if you want to see how this particular figure handles in great detail. As we go through the unboxing and review of Demoniacal Fit, I will also be pointing out any differences that I notice between their 3.0 Goku implementation and Kong's approach. So that way you get a good idea how the two figures compare. 2023 has been a bit of an odd year for Dragon Ball figure arts, especially with respect to Goku. I've been a little bit more excited by what third party is doing with standard gi Goku this year, between Kong and now Demoniacal Fit, both releasing 3.0 updates for this body. Don't get me wrong, I'm very excited for the legendary Super Saiyan Goku figure, which is landing anytime between now and January, depending on where you've ordered him from, which is looking to be a fantastic 3.0 Goku figure. It's just not standard gi Goku. It's very specifically final fight with Frieza on Namek Goku, where his shirt's ripped off, his pants are torn, he's all buffed out in his first appearance Super Saiyan look. And I mean, that's shaping up to be one of my favorite figures of the year if it, one, makes it in time, and two, holds up to the hype that I've built up for it. But as of this moment, SHF hasn't announced any 3.0 Goku with the full blue and orange gi. It's actually been a little bit frustrating knowing that 3.0 is on the horizon, 3.0 Goku figures are inevitable, but this year the game plan seems to be re-release or reissue every single 2.0 Goku. I think it started with Super Saiyan Blue from the Broly movie earlier this year. A Saiyan Raised on Earth here just recently got a re-release. Full Power Super Saiyan was re-released as the Translucent Ghost Goku in the event exclusive 2-pack with Gohan. Warrior Awakening Goku was updated and re-released for Tamashii Nation's 15th Anniversary World Tour exclusive. Super Saiyan God is getting an update reissue early next year. Mastered Ultra Instinct is getting the Toyotaro head sculpt update reissue early next year. Superhero Goku has been in stock and widely available throughout the year, so doesn't really need reissued. Ultra Instinct Sign may have even gotten a reissue. It was exclusive, but I think that one was this year. Even Yamcha, who's basically a 2.0 Goku without the blue shirt and different boots, is getting an updated reissue with his Android Saga appearance early next year. Super Saiyan 3 Goku. In a year when third party is creating a 3.0 Super Saiyan 3 Goku and had Demoniacal Fit doing their own updated 2.0 Super Saiyan 3 Goku, Tamashii also saw fit to reissue Super Saiyan 3 Goku on their 2.0 body. I think I covered all of them. I mean, Kaioken Goku hasn't gotten a reissue. Super Saiyan 2 Goku, I guess, hasn't gotten a re-release yet. But that one was just brand new as of last year's event exclusives. As I mentioned, we're going to unbox the Demoniacal Fit 3.0 base form Goku. I'll talk about how he compares to Kong's 3.0 Super Saiyan 3 Goku, official SHF 3.0 Ultimate Gohan. If you want to see a comparison to 2.0 Goku, go check out the previous video that I did comparing Kong to 2.0 and 1.0 Goku. I'll try out some head swaps, including Ultimate Gohan here. Super Saiyan 3 head swap will not work. This Kong neck peg is unique to this figure and not compatible with any others. I also have the Demoniacal Fit GT Goku here, who has a really nice range of base form and Super Saiyan heads and faces, so I'll try some of those out because they have pretty good updated face prints. First off, the presentation in this box is wonderful. I have been a big fan of the Demoniacal Fit box art. They pretty much just took the idea from SHF's event exclusive one-tone accent color rendering of the figure rather than the full color renderings that come on the standard Figuarts boxes. And to show you what I mean, here's the box for Ultimate Gohan. Demoniacal Fits, like I was saying, they have this sort of like accent color, single tone render of the figure on a black background, which is pretty much exactly like the event exclusive boxes for SHF. Also, to get an idea of the box dimensions, the Demoniacal Fit box is actually a little bit shorter than your official SHF box, for whatever reason. It's also a bit deeper, and then a little bit narrower. So, this one, as far as how it compares to other Demoniacal Fit boxes, they've been a little bit inconsistent over the years, but it seems like they kind of form fit them to whatever figure they're making at the time. Here's their other recent Goku, the GT Goku, and you can see it's actually also a little bit taller. So some height inconsistency there. Not a huge deal, but is a little bit of a deal if you are going to display your boxes library style. Is that what they call it? Book style. On the front of the box, looks like he's kind of fastening his wristband. Ages 15 and up, and has small parts not for children under 3 years, so exactly the same age rating and warning as the official SHF products. Same disclaimer about product may differ from photo. I mean, I hope so. I hope he's not all orange. Demoniacal Fit, and some characters that I can't read. Spinning around to the right side, we see their third-party moniker here, Martialist Forever, is just printed horizontally, and a little bit of the front render is continued. Demoniacal Fit. Flipping around to the back, you have a box style similar to the SHF boxes again, where it shows off some of the accessories. This is the same pose from the front of the box, but now in full color. And here you can see he has an alternate gritting teeth face, a standard sort of neutral face, a shouting face with Kamehameha hands, as well as a smiling face there. And there's some language here. Dynamic articulation enable recreation of Martialist Forever, iconic action sequences from the original. So a little bit of an awkward translation there. Master-crafted sculpt accurately depicts Martialist Forever form in meticulous detail. That one, pretty good. Pretty good job on that one. Super modeling, super action. 6-inch action figure series. Demoniacal Fit is a 6-inch action figures series that is mainly in pursuit of character expression. Ooh, love expressions, especially of the entertainment. After sought for cooperation with many folk developers, supplemented by rich subjects and presented through ingenious and diversified manufacturing processes. Yeah, not too sure what that means. But I do always find it a bit amusing to read whatever language ends up on these third-party boxes. Anyhow, on the left-hand side of the box now, this is probably the side I will display on my shelf, because that looks amazing. Much more exciting than this side of the box. Here we have another orange and black toned render of the Kamehameha pose. It's the same one from here. And then on the bottom, there's usually some more printing. It looks like they've just continued the renders from the front and side, and then name of the figure again. All right, enough about this box. I think that's covered everything. Top is a little scuffed up. Not real sure what that's about, but I don't look at the tops of these boxes very much. And I think we've covered it from all angles. Let's go ahead and break them out. So I'm going to open this box the same way I would a Figuarts box. There's tape on either side. I usually go for the right-hand side, especially because the Figuarts boxes have the window extending onto the left side. So slice that tape, and then I'm going to take the blade of my knife and carefully fit it under this flap and just pop both ends of it. And this gives me just a nice clean opening. I know some people aren't too precious about their boxes, but I like to keep mine in as good a condition as I can for as long as I can. It's just, I don't know, it feels good to me to like take care of things, and these are things I like taking care of. So we've got some interesting numbering there, and then inside the box, if we slide the trays out, you can see, similar to the new Figuarts style boxes, they are colored in the accent color from the outside of the box, and it's all the way throughout this nice, lovely, rich orange color. I think that looks really good. So I'm always a fan of Demoniacal Fit's box design. I mean, obviously, they've had some inspiration from SHF. Credit where credit is due. SHF has a great design for the event-exclusive boxes. We have two trays. The bottom tray has a flight stand. It has Goku's personal logo on it. Now, this is what I'm really here for. We have the 3.0 base form Goku. So far, the finish on the figure is looking great, but as far as the accessories, he has 5 different faces. He has a neutral, serious face, shouting face, smirking face, angry, gritting teeth face, and then a happy, smiling Goku face, and that's perfect. I really like a full range of personality expression in the faces, and they've nailed it. 5 pairs of hands, fists, open, spread fingers, martial arts style posing hands, open with clenched fingers, 2-finger pointing or instant transmission hands, and then a single left hand thumbs up. So 5 pairs of hands plus 1 alternate thumbs up left hand, and then 5 alternate faces. Alright, now let's go ahead and lift him out of the tray. To do that, I'm just going to rest him on the back here, and there's a little bit of an opening by his feet where you can grab the space between, slide out the top lid, and let's go ahead and lift our figure out. And right away, I can tell you this is feeling very sturdy and solid. Next, let's run through swapping out some of his accessories. After that, we'll go over his articulation and the overall build quality in hand. And then finally, we'll wrap things up with comparisons to the other figures that I've brought out here. Both height comparisons, aesthetic comparisons, and just comparing the different builds, since this is a new construction for a 3.0 base form Goku. Now let's get a close-up on the faces, starting out with the sort of serious, frowny face. There are some really nice details brought out here. He has a really nice, sharp sort of cheek to jaw structure. It kind of follows the pattern of like Super Saiyan 4 Goku or Ultimate Gohan with sort of sharper bone structure. See the angle there, and the line work is really clean and subtle. Below the eyes, and then above the brow, and then just a little bit of crease over the bridge of the nose. A nice on-model Goku face for sort of later Dragon Ball Z. And we'll talk about that art style when we get to the aesthetic. Okay, now let's go ahead and swap the faces out and show you what the alternates look like. So you can just pull the bangs, and the faceplates are separate. Pull the faceplate, and then you can grab alternate faces and swap those on quite easily. Here we have the shouting face. Really nice that they're starting to do 2 tones of paint in the mouth. It gives it really nice sense of depth. And what I mean by that, actually it's 3 if you count white for the teeth. But then inside the mouth there is a pink shade on the tongue, and then a darker sort of maroon in the back of the mouth. I think that looks really good. Some of the 2.0 figures, or most of the 2.0 figures, only used 1 shade, and sometimes it was a lighter pink than probably necessary, and it looks a little odd, like they've been chewing a bunch of bubble gum. The lines, again, really accentuate the tension. The pupils are more of a complete circle, not completely shown, but they sit below the brow, and so you see more of them, indicating that his eyes are widened here. And you have a little detail line at the corner of the mouth, just showing sort of the stretch. And then same lines above and below the brow. These are a little bit more curved here. Lines between the eyebrows at the bridge of the nose, and then you also have some kind of scrunch lines on the sides of the nose now. And yeah, it has a really convincing effect of sort of tense shouting face. Let's go ahead and swap on his like Kamehameha pants. His Kamehameha pants. Of course, everybody has a pair of those. Hands. And test out these butterfly joints a little bit. And here we've swapped on the blast hands for his Kamehameha pose. Swapping the hands is a pretty easy process so far. Let's go ahead and switch these for the open palm left hand. And should click into place if we just increase the pressure slowly. There we go. And then on the right hand side, let's go ahead and grab it at the wristband and pull in a straight line away from the forearm. We'll take his instant transmission right hand. This is one of my favorite key blast poses. So get this arm extended out. One thing about the 3.0, I do wish they still had the like fully spread hands. I think there's a use for that. These are still pretty spread, but having the fingers be a little bit more spread and tensed, I think is really useful for poses where they're blasting or something like that. But I get that this is also a little bit more versatile, but it's getting kind of similar to this hand. Let's see, this one, I think it's more like this. Twist him at the waist a good amount. Let's get him to lean into it a little more. As I move these shoulders, it is a bit complex to work with, since there are 2 sleeves here to work around while posing him. Go get him to lean into it a little bit more. But yeah, so far this figure's been really stable and easy to balance, so that's been really nice. Let's go ahead and swap now the happy face on. We'll see what that one looks like. It's going to be a bit different from the 2 that we've looked at so far. And what we're going to do here, we'll do him sort of teleporting away, telling everyone good job. So we're going to pull the open blast hand out, and that is annoying with that wrist popping out. But that is sort of the deal with third-party figures. Every now and then the joint tensions aren't quite right. Okay, and this thumbs up hand is going on his left. Okay, teleporting away, telling everyone good job. So teleporting, we gotta put his sort of 2 fingers on his forehead. I don't know if we can thread him under his hair. Yeah, we got it. Okay, and then reach that arm out. Go ahead and put the hinge in sort of the vertical position. It can be a little tricky to do it once the hand is attached. There's not a lot of room to hinge that hand down, but we'll do as much as we can. All right, and there we have Goku saying, "Great job, everybody." Bye, son. I guess he's looking kind of down and in front of him, so maybe he's flying away while doing this. I think that looks really good. And I don't know, some people will say this face looks too goofy, his eyes are too far apart or wide, his eyes are looking like they're crossed, but I mean, this is what he looks like. It's just kind of the character, so. But I like, you can see how, again, they've done the really nice sort of two-tone painting in the mouth, as well as the clean white on the teeth. Another great detail on this happy face, the lines below the eyes, you can see how they are a little bit more angled relative to each other and spread apart, compared to the shouting face where they almost flatten to a straight line, and that's the technique that they use to show whether the face is more relaxed or in tension. So that's really nice here. Next we'll go ahead and give him his teeth gritting face, and there goes the whole wristband. Unfortunately, I'm having a problem with his left hand. It's not broken or anything, but it is not pulling apart the way it's supposed to. So normally you just pull on the wrist, or pull on the hand away from the wrist, and the hand should come off of the wrist joint. But what's happening instead is the wrist joint is coming out completely, and even the forearm, the wristband, is coming off the forearm. So that's not very good, but that's kind of the deal with third-party figures, is sometimes the tensions aren't balanced quite right. And so the wrist into the forearm is a little less tight than the hand into the wrist, and that's what you get. But you can just pop it out, and it is just a little bit extra fiddly to deal with. But it's not too bad. And then you can pop it back into the wrist. It's not broken or anything, but it is just an extra step, I guess, to swap out parts. And one that might startle people who are not used to swapping them out. Okay, let's go ahead and give him a charging Kamehameha sort of pose with his gritted teeth face. The gritted teeth face here is very similar to the shouting face. The lines under the eyes are a little more relaxed, but still tensed. Scrunching at the nose. The pupils are not quite as visible. And the mouth. One thing that's a little bit unusual sometimes on these teeth gritting faces is if the sculpt isn't deep enough around the mouth, it can kind of look like they've just got toothpaste all around their mouth, but this one is pretty good. It's a good deep sculpt. And what I mean by that is like the crevice around his inner mouth here is deep enough that you can see some shadow, and that gives it enough depth to come across as like those are his teeth and not toothpaste. So that's good. Ultimate Gohan kind of has the toothpaste problem. A little bit of another crease around the corner of the mouth there. And yeah, this one looks really nice. Okay, let's charge up his attack. So charging the Kamehameha, use the butterfly joint to the full effect to bring the arm, this left arm, across his body. And that works really well. And then I think the left hand here is kind of posed in angled downward relative to his arm. And then the right hand just kind of comes in on top of that like this. It helps to imagine he's actually holding a ball. And what that means is like his hands from every angle should kind of, the arcs of his fingers should be roughly in a circular, you could imagine like a circle that goes around those fingers and then curls up through those. And again, from any angle, you got to do that. The nice thing about a ball or a sphere is it's a circle from every angle. So it can help kind of give you something to build around in 3D space. But man, that looks nice. You can even get the hands a little bit closer together than that. Yep, I'm digging that. Okay, and then last but not least, let's go ahead and put his smirking face on. I don't know, what's a good pose for the smirking face? Oh, I got a little bit of scuffing on the shoulder there from using the butterfly joint, so do be aware that that is something that can happen if the joint is pushed in a little too much. And again, that's kind of another third-party ism. Kind of, usually you want to engineer the figure so that it doesn't scratch itself when you move it, and sometimes the cuts and the materials don't work out quite right, and you can end up kind of scuffing the figure a little bit if you push the articulation too far like I did, but that's kind of why I got this guy, so it's not a big problem to me. Okay, and then let's go ahead and swap out the smirking face. What's a good pose for his smirking face? Let's put it on and we'll see what what inspiration strikes. So there we've got the Goku smirk, and then you can see under the eyes, once again, you have the more relaxed lines. They're somewhere in between the relaxed happy face and the shouting face, so that's really cool. He's got a little bit of brow line, or a couple lines above the eyebrows, and then a little light crease at the bridge of the nose, but nowhere near as creased as the shouting face, meaning that you can really just see that in that middle line, and it's kind of like a W shape. You can only really see the middle of the W on this face, but this one you can see the full W. That's awesome. I like that attention to detail. So, and then a little bit of a crease at the corner of the mouth, give him that smirk. All right, I think let's go ahead and give him his fighting stance. Goku is always smirking and happy when he's fighting. He loves it the most. For this one, we give him sort of the style pose. I don't know what you call this hand. It needs a name. But then pull that back arm in. Get him crouched and looking up. Not a problem. And then pull this hand up in front. Get this elbow back as much as I can. And then we'll just bend that leg a little bit. And that looks great. Man, I'm really liking this figure. I think they did a really nice job. Couple little nuisance points as I've gone through the articulation. The kneecap runs into the thigh. The shoulders can be a little tricky to move around with the inner sleeve and the outer sleeve, plus the shoulder, plus the butterfly. It's just a complex setup, but I mean, it works really well when you get it in the right position. It helps to kind of understand the mechanics of it, so that's what I've tried to convey. Not much difficulty swapping the accessories. The only exception is that left wrist. The tension between wrist and forearm is not quite enough, but most of the time it works okay. Where the hand pops off, it really depends on which hand you're using. Like the thumbs up hand, I noticed, is a bit tighter on the ball peg. So that one, you might want to heat it up before you put it on. Always heat the socket. You want a soft socket and a hard peg. You don't want a soft peg because it will just bend and twist. So let's see. And then a couple of aesthetic points that have come up as I've gone. There are some glossy hinges, and I don't really know why, but I mean, compare the elbow here to the Figuarts elbow, and you can see right away, like, way more shine on the DF. you can see those hot lines going through there, the white highlights, and then on Figuarts, you don't really see that. So I'm not really sure what's going on there, but it's the same on the back, and it's also the same on the back of the knees, and then also on the inner hips. It's also the same under the hips. And I don't know if they just needed like a little sanding or something. Something to kind of roughen up that surface so it's not so smooth and reflective, but yeah, it just sticks out a little bit to me. Okay, let's go ahead and get him back into neutral. I kind of like having a neutral for figures. I think, oh, there goes the other wrist. Okay, that's a little annoying. And I think, yeah, like I said, it just comes down to which hand you're using and how tight that socket on the hand is. The fists are really not a problem, and I think that's because they've been sitting on the figure in the box for how long, I don't know. So you can see if I pop the fist on the right side and then pull, of course, the opposite of what I said happens is going to happen there. You can see here how the wrist is constructed actually with a separate wrist part, and it does look like this is actually painted. I'm surprised by that. But it makes sense. Maybe they don't want to run a blue injection for just his wristbands. I don't know if they're supposed to match his boots, but you could run it with the boots maybe. If that does come off, it is keyed, so there is only one way it can go back on. So just make sure you line that up, and then you can pop the wrist joint back in. That is so far really the only nuisance with part swaps though. The wrist joints just not wanting to stay in the forearm. Skin tones all pretty well matched. The collar is a separate plastic piece similar to Gohan, Ultimate Gohan, that's sort of inlaid into the shirt, and you can see a little bit of a seam where it is fit into the shirt. And then I think that this blue part is painted. The boots with really clean red accent lines on them. The gold for his ties is nicely applied as well. Actually a little bit of light brown paint on the bottom of the boots. So that's nice because sometimes you see Goku doing a kick and his bottom of his boot is showing when he does that. But yeah, the orange finish on the gi is pretty consistent. It's always a challenge with the way the Figuarts bodies are built. They use typically a harder plastic on the torso pieces and the waist and upper thigh pieces compared to the shoulders and the lower legs, from the thigh through the knee and then into the shin and calf. And so matching the finish and color on all of those to achieve a pretty consistent orange throughout it's always a design challenge with especially a new figure that's maybe using different materials or just different colors. There is a little bit of a difference in finish. You can see some of these hot spots on the shirt give away that it is a little bit more glossy. Same on the thigh here. Pants at the top around the waist as well. And that's just due to that sort of harder plastic material. And then it's just not as evident on the lower pants. The shoulder sleeves actually match the lower pants really well, but they do stick out a little bit relative to the shirt, the rest of the shirt on the torso. But if you take a step back, it's pretty hard to notice. Next, we'll cover the range of motion on these joints, and to help us set sort of a baseline, let's go ahead and bring out the Figuarts Ultimate Gohan. Overall, I'm really happy with the range of motion on Ultimate Gohan. For the most part, I have a couple of areas that I think could be improved, though. Starting from the top, the neck, it does look up pretty well, but I mean, these are characters who do a lot of like flying around and low crouching poses, so they need to look up a little bit more than this, I think. He does look down really well, and then a really good amount of tilt. It's really just looking up that's a little bit too limited. The torso is also just a little bit limited, and then the ankles are a little bit limited on their hinge. Like, I would like to see his foot straight with his leg. Let's see how the Demoniacal fit compares. We'll go top to bottom, comparing range of motion on each of the joints. But yeah, overall, I'm really, really happy with the shoulders, the elbows, the hips, and the knees. And then, like, the wrists, they're fine. The torso is decent, but it could also use a little bit more side-to-side tilting to really get them into, like, an uppercut pose. You want that torso to be able to tilt quite a lot so that their spine is curved like that. When moving the torso, you always want to think about where their spine is and what it's doing. Okay, anyhow, starting from the neck, let's go ahead and get his arms, one forward, one back, and that gives us kind of a level plane. So looking up is a bit of a challenge for both figures. You can see the angle of Gohan's eyeline there, and the angle of Goku's is maybe a little bit better. Looking down, though, is no problem for either of them. They pretty much can bury their chin into their chest. So that's what you want. It does look like Goku's eyeline does get a little bit steeper here. So that's good. That's past 90 or past 45 degrees down. Gohan's more like there, right around 45. While we've got their arms up like this, let's do the ab crunch forward. It's actually pretty good on Gohan. I think really the torso range that I would like to see improved is the tilt side to side. We'll get to that. Pretty much dead even ab crunch going forward. Goku is maybe just a few degrees ahead. But ultimately, like, the cool thing about it is, combined with the neck, he can look straight down below his feet. Same goes for Gohan. So that's nice. 45 at the torso, 45 at the neck, and you're there. So now let's lean them back all the way. Okay, and same for Gohan. They're again about dead even. But you can see the angle of their arms suggests how much tilt there is, and they're about even. And I mean, the goal there is, if you want them in a flying forward pose, they need to kind of be able to look straight horizontal like this. Both of them are not quite there. and I think that comes down to the neck. But yeah, it would be really nice for them to be able to look straight vertically. Okay, so with the lower body, let's go ahead and kick the leg up, straight forward. That gets about 90 degrees for Goku, and pretty even with Gohan here. Let's bend the knees. Again, pretty much dead even. The gap at the bottom of the kneecap is a little bit more apparent to me on Goku just due to the lighter color of his outfit. Like with Gohan, he's got such a dark purple outfit that the shadow in there isn't so obvious, but it is a little bit more obvious on this orange. But the range is good. It's actually a little bit better than Gohan's. It looks like Goku's achieved a little bit deeper of a knee bend here. Compare the position of this bottom poof relative to the thigh. You can see there's a gap. On Goku, that gap is not present, and so that means that his knee bend is a little bit deeper. Let's compare the angles. Holding them both horizontally, you can see the angle of Gohan's lower leg is about there, and Goku's is like that, meaning it bent a little bit more. So that's pretty cool. I don't know what really prompted that or how that came about, but good job. Again, careful bending in that knee. Got to push on the kneecap piece so that it doesn't run into the thigh. I don't have that problem on Gohan. They've sculpted that knee, that upper kneecap, long enough so that it's already resting under the cut in the thigh. So that's another difference to point out. With the knees fully bent, you can see there's a gap in Goku's, but there's no gap present at the top for Gohan. A little bit of a miss there, but it's okay. You can work around it, like I said, by pushing in the top of the kneecap as you straighten the knee. Okay, last hinging points. Let's talk about the ankles, which Goku here is in a competition with Kong for most useless ankle hinge, unfortunately. There we go, forward. Gohan kind of has a bit of an advantage on that one, but not much, honestly. Like I was saying, the ankle hinge is one of the weaker points on the Gohan figure as well, but he does get a little bit more range than Goku due to the shape of the boot, maybe. And then going down, there's kind of a distinct advantage for Gohan, but neither of them really gets parallel to the leg, which is what I would like to see. I mean, 2.0 was actually closer to that one. That is significantly better on the 2.0. So I think what they need is something like the Naruto ball socket going in. So the hinge here is connected to the boot with a swivel joint, but I think if they made that a ball joint like on Naruto, it would allow that hinge to kind of pose around the boot, almost like a butterfly joint for the foot. And that could allow kind of a straighter foot down pose, and that's another one that's like really important when they're flying around. So we'll see how SHF does with it. Their Gohan here is not the best either. I'm hoping that the new Goku coming up will have some sort of solution for this. Okay. That's all of our forward and backward hinges. Let's go side to side now for that. What we're going to do is change our pose to kind of a T pose. But yeah, the shoulder mechanism here is just a little bit stiffer and more complex to work with compared to Gohan due to the extra sleeve piece on the inside there, but ultimately it does hit the pose you want. These butterfly caps, I'm not sure what the right answer is here. They do kind of get in the way of a pose. We'll go over that range of motion last. But okay, now looking at the tilt top to bottom, we have Goku tilting to the side. I think this neck part does not tilt, so it's only the head tilting on top of the neck. And that's because that's a hinge. I don't really know why that needs to be a hinge. I think a ball peg, like on the 2.0, would work just fine. And so you can see the neck here does actually tilt on the 2.0. I don't know why they've changed the neck piece connection to the torso to a hinge now. But there you go, tilting to the side. Pretty good amount. Goku's actually got him beat a little bit there. Next, we'll go ahead and check the tilt at the torso. This is one area that I think Gohan's not the strongest in. Pretty small amount of tilt there. Let's see how Goku does on the Demoniacal fit. Not a tremendous amount either, but he does beat Ultimate Gohan just a little bit. You can see if I hold their waists parallel to each other and then just overlap them, you can see Goku's just a few degrees past, but not outstanding for either of them. Kicking hips to the side, they both do a really good job with. There's Gohan's and Goku. Has no problem matching that. The 3.0 hips just so far have all been like full marks, 180 degree splits. But you do have that like shiny inner hip. It's a little bit shiny on Gohan, but noticeably like glossy on Goku here. It's a little bit unusual. And again, backs of the knees have a similar problem on Goku. And it's probably just they're a harder material. For the joint, you want that to be stable. I guess we'll keep him in the T-pose for a second. Do the ankle pivot. It's not bad. It's about 45 degrees. And just to compare with Gohan here, roughly equal. So if you do the widest stance with their ankles flat, I think this is the Glenn Webb pose, which I learned about from Mike Case, who is a Black Series reviewer. So shout out to both of them. This is a really useful way to show ankle pivot. Give them the starfish pose here. And then you can compare the height of their belts. Kind of tells you who got lower. Goku got a little bit lower, so that's good. At the bottom, let's start with the toe hinge. It's not too exciting on either, but works well enough. And you can point out that like the bottoms of the shoes stick out a little bit and have like kind of a squared off cut, but that doesn't bother me at all. Very functional toe hinge. Has a little bit deeper, a little bit of a longer toe than Gohan, which makes it a little bit more useful actually. And then he also has like treads basically at the bottom of his feet, so gets a little more friction on the surface to help him not slip off those toe joints. So that's kind of cool. Physics. Orange Piccolo, Boy from the Future Trunks, and Legendary Super Saiyan Goku have this like really steep thigh cut, so it hides the gap a little bit. Like, and if you look from the side, I think the point of it is you don't see this cut at all from the side with that new, more vertical thigh cut. But these two both have this original sort of horizontal thigh swivel, but it is pretty well hidden, and it works perfectly fine. My Gohan's thigh swivels are a little bit loose over time. These are nice and tight, but this is a brand new figure, so to be determined. There's his elbow. Works fine on both. About the same. Last little detailed joint to go over is the butterfly joints at the shoulder. These are really great. The problem I have with this is this particular construction makes the swivel a little bit harder, and he doesn't really get a good A pose without like really torquing the inner sleeve here. You can like jerk it around and kind of bend it forward and tuck it in a little bit, and then you can kind of approximate his arms going straight up. Again, I've put a little bit of a stress mark on the shoulder doing that, so be careful. If you rotate them around like that, you can get them to go up. But that's one problem with this sleeve design. I don't know if it needed to be so long. This hinge joint in the middle, if you change that to a ball peg, it would give you a little bit more room inside the shoulder, because what's happening here, there should be room, but the shoulder has this like socket ball peg, and it needs to go, in order for the arm to go up, it needs to go in, and there's just not enough room. And I'm guessing it's probably because there's a hinge on either side of his neck, like there and there, versus if you had a ball peg here, that would be a thinner joint, and that would give more room for the shoulder to go in. I don't know, that's one idea. You can see in there a little bit the inner workings. You can see that pin, that's the hinge for the neck, and then this ball shape is actually the top of the inner ball socket combo joint. I'll show it to you from this angle. And so you can see this ball peg going down into the torso would theoretically allow that socket to tilt like this, and that would let his arms go straight up. But I think it's running into the inner assembly here, the top of this sleeve. So I don't know if they can trim the top of this sleeve a little bit, and if they can make that neck joint any thinner, do that. But yeah, so that's the downside to this type of sleeve for a butterfly joint. It works perfectly for shirtless characters like the Super Saiyan 4 Goku, or the Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta for that matter. But for these guys with sleeves, the A pose becomes more of a Y, and Gohan has the same problem. Here for Gohan, the workaround is a little bit easier because he doesn't have two sleeves getting in the way. And the workaround, like I was saying, is like move the butterfly joint either forward or backward, put it in either the forward or back position. And that, oh, here, perfect. You can see the inner assembly. That hinge, this ball socket joint goes down into there, and it basically needs to go like this. And you can see how that sleeve is going to collide with the neck inside there. So yeah, just like a slight reshape of the sleeve piece and make that narrower. And that would let hit, because that's what like the Super Saiyan 4 figures do, and that's what Mafex figures do. They're able to go in at the shoulder, and that lets them hit an A pose really easily. but work around by putting the shoulder in the forward-facing position, and then he can bring his arm up that way. Goku has a little bit of a harder time with that just due to the second sleeve piece. So we're going to try it here. Put the shoulder into the forward position. Easier said than done. And again, I'm probably stressing something by doing this, so I will let you know. Okay, I managed to get it there. And it's still connected in there, so that's good. The arm is coming out, doing stuff like this, but just like to show you can make it happen. But it is a little bit tricky. And I don't think I put any new stress marks on the plastic doing that one. Those were already there. But, it might have hit those same spots again. And yeah, the smoothness of this joint I think is going to get improved overall over time. And like eventually this is the style joint Mafex has been going with for a while, and they've got it down. So keep refining it, and Figure Arts will get there too. And like I said, they've kind of already got it on the Super Saiyan 4 and shirtless characters. It's just these guys with the shirts. The Beast Gohan torso, if they can get that material softer and more pliable, and like able to hold its shape and not spring back and push the arm back out, that could be a good way forward too for the characters with the shirts. Okay, got a little bit of some stress under the sleeve on Gohan, but he's kind of my hand figure. I like posing him around. He's been on my desk for a while, and the biggest problem is he's a bit of a noisemaker. As far as Goku, he a little quieter in the hips, louder in the torso. Okay, now as far as the forward motion of the butterfly joints, they're really good on both of these figures. You do just want to be careful not to stress the sleeve pieces. If they made those just a little bit softer, maybe. They are quite a hard plastic. I think that could be made softer, those sleeve pieces. Kong has done that, and it works pretty well. But going forward, you get really good crossbody with both. Gohan's gets a little ridiculous if you really push it. Almost hand to hand behind the back. Gohan, I think, is going to have him beat. And that's because look how far that shoulder sleeve can pop out. And I think that is a good thing, so don't put any kind of range limiter on there to hide that gap. I don't care about that gap. I would rather be able to do stuff like this. Yeah, they're about equivalent going back. Gohan gets a little bit closer. But really good. range going back in general. And then, as I showed, they can't do the A pose very well. Kong does it a bit better, and I think it's... The sleeves are soft material here. They can move out of the way, so you can either just keep them in their kind of default position and push into, or you can actually spin them around pretty easily and get past vertical. And that's no problem because you can see it flex. And that's just because it is like a squishy material. The finish needs to match with the rest of the shirt. Next, let's take a look at the height of the Demoniacal Fit Goku here relative to the Kong Studios 3.0 Goku and the Figuarts Ultimate Gohan. And we can see if we draw a straight line across his shoulders, neck and neck with Ultimate Gohan. And Kong actually has shoulders that are a little bit higher than the other two. Let's go ahead and slide Gohan out to the side. And that's the Saiyan Raised on Earth Goku here. I've tried a couple of head swaps, and I just want to demonstrate that they're not direct between Gohan and Goku. The ball pegs are very similar, but not exactly the same. And Gohan's head will go on the ball peg and stay attached. But it is loose around the ball. So it will need some adaptation if you want to do this swap. You can kind of pull up on the head a little bit once you get it into position to kind of hold it in place. And that will like put it in tension with the ball, and so you can keep it in a particular spot by doing that. But yeah, it doesn't fit completely one-to-one. Super Saiyan 3 Goku has a unique neck peg, so no luck with that swap. Saiyan Raised on Earth Goku, the ball is a bit smaller, but it does sort of fit on there. And so that means there's potential for swaps with other 2.0 Gokus. The range is a little bit limited though due to the size of the neck. Okay, next I want to talk about the aesthetics and the build of this figure. A couple of comments on the build quality. It's overall pretty solid. And so that's the first note. He doesn't really have any trouble standing up. He's well balanced. The joints are firm but not too firm. The only one I did have to put a little bit of oil in is the swivel on this left shoulder, like this part. That was a little bit too tight out of the package. So I did put some silicone oil in there, and it's moving around nicely now. I think the best way to wrap up talking about the aesthetics and details and build quality on the Demoniacal Fit Martialist Forever is to compare him to his nearest neighbors. Closest in build is actually the superhero Gohan, then the Kong Super Saiyan 3 Goku, and then the 2.0 Saiyan Raised on Earth Goku. However, Ultimate Gohan is maybe not actually the most similar figure overall. For that, I need to grab another figure that hasn't been in the video so far, but I realized partway through there's quite a lot of similarities and some nice design cohesion between the Demoniacal Fit base form Goku and the figure art's Krillin, Earth's strongest man, and you can see right away the colors are matched really, really nicely, especially the oranges. But the similarities don't actually stop there. You've got the shoulder construction with the blue inner sleeve almost being part of the shoulder, and then this outer floating orange cap. Mid-torso cut. It's a bit flatter here, and that's interesting. Our superhero Gohan has it a little bit rounder, almost like a semicircle. Krillin, Earth's strongest man, has closer cut shaped, a cut that is closer shaped to the Goku. So that is interesting because you can see there's like that flatter section in the middle. It's not such a straight across arc like Gohan's. So I don't know if they like scaled up parts of Krillin or just used it as a reference point, but they did a really nice job sort of matching the build and the aesthetic of this figure. I think these three, like, they look great together. So that's really cool. They are much, much closer together than these two. For example, they did make a good change on his shoulder joint. You can see Krillin's inner ball joint there is actually skin tone. It's not a huge deal. It doesn't show from most angles, and usually the sleeve covers it up pretty well. But Goku's, they did go ahead and make orange, so that's a little bit of an improvement. Next, relative to superhero Gohan, the interesting points to point out: the difference in the torso cut, we already talked about. The arms are pretty much exactly the same sculpt, except for the top. The shoulder piece on Goku is actually kind of trimmed at the top. For the sleeve, there is an F on the inside of the belt facing that way. So, I don't know if this is backwards, but it is according to Gohan's. So I'm going to go ahead and spin it around. And that's easy enough. Kong's is actually the same way as Gohan's. So I'm thinking that the demoniacal fit is the odd one out. Let's see, other differences. They've shortened the pants a little bit where the boots meet, because Goku's boots come up a little bit taller than Gohan's. The hair sculpt for Goku is new, as well as the face sculpts themselves. So completely new head sculpt on Goku, and it's done really nicely in the style of the Ultimate Gohan sculpt, with lots of like texture lines in the hair, sharper angles, straight edges for the most part, and lots of good like volume on those spikes. Compare that with the 2.0 figure. There are a lot more round edges, curved lines, a few texture lines, but not nearly as many. And less extreme spikes, I would say. That's generally how he compares to Gohan. Let's also discuss the Super Saiyan 3 Kong figure. I think that is an interesting one, and then we'll finish things out with Saiyan raised on Earth. Okay, so Super Saiyan 3 Goku from Kong. I've got a couple of issues with this figure. I think the first and foremost is the hair is just very heavy. It makes it hard to pose his head. It makes it hard for him to balance. He's very back and top heavy. So it's kind of just been the norm for Super Saiyan 3 figures so far to not address this. I would like to see that change though. Maybe if Bandai makes their own 3.0 Super Saiyan 3, they can, I don't know, lighten the hair a little bit. Do something to make this form like usable as a figure, because as it is, it's just very hard to pose him. He doesn't stand on his own, and it's hard to pose the head. The faces don't sit exactly flush with the bangs, so there is a little bit of a line there. You can mitigate it by pulling the bangs out and just like resting them down a little bit. If you push them in all the way though, the gap gets more pronounced. So what I usually do is just shift them forward a little bit and then down, and it hides most of the gap pretty well. And it's not really obvious that it's pulled out unless you look at it exactly from that angle. But some other problems that have come up since my review: his left arm pops out very easily at the shoulder. You saw it earlier. Got kind of a boy from the future Trunks situation where it stays in, but the connection is just a little bit too relaxed. And so if you aren't extremely careful about moving the shoulder by grabbing the shoulder and twisting it and pushing down and in at the same time, it can become detached fairly easily, but it's actually holding in pretty well because it's on camera, of course. There we go. So that's sort of a new development that's made this figure a little bit more difficult to handle. He's already hard to handle with the hair, but add that on top, and he starts to become more of a pose it and leave it figure more than like a desk figure, but that's okay. I think this like aesthetically makes up for it. I think it looks really, really good. Demoniacal Fit's V-cut looks like it's deeper, like it goes a little lower towards his belt. But keep in mind, Kong also has a bit of an elongated lower torso. And if you compare the position of the cut with the bottom of the V, they're pretty close. Also, remember this cut comes up a little bit higher, so I do think this V is actually bigger. Like this is a bigger area than this. The wrist pegs rest a little deeper in the wristband. It limits the range on the wrists a little bit more, but it looks a little bit better. Boots have a slightly different sculpt, and it's most obvious from the bottom. I think this looks more on model. Goku doesn't really have like organic looking boots. They've always been more like boats, like almost like this, really. And this shape is just a little bit too organic. I think this is closer. If you look at them from the side, you can see a little bit of a difference. There's also a difference in the pin. The material on Kong is like this very strange hollow cylinder that it's possible to see pretty much, there we go, straight through, whereas Demoniacal Fit has filled that with a blue peg, which is the same approach Figuarts did with Gohan. And it differs from the 2.0 a little bit, which used to use these like metal pins. ties are actually a little bit more refined on Kong. It's a bit thicker rope on Demoniacal Fit. I don't know if either is really wrong. And then the final difference is just in the colors and the finish. It's maybe the first difference you would notice. So the color palette, the skin tones are pretty close. There's a little bit more pink or red in the Kong skin tone. So that might affect what heads swap better onto which body. But of course, for Kong, you need a custom neck peg. Very much brighter, more vibrant and saturated colors on Kong. A little less saturated and closer to Earth's Strongest Man on Demoniacal Fit. Darker blue, darker orange. And same like around the boots and the belt. If you watch like late Buu Saga or some of the movies like Fusion Reborn, you'll see Goku's clothes do actually change color when he transforms, due to just kind of having more of a glow overall. Even when his aura isn't active, his clothes do get lighter. Kong's figure, maybe by accident, captures that really nicely. Whereas this is a much more muted look for the base form of Goku. And I think I can make both work for that reason. Alright, finally let's talk about the 2.0 and 3.0 differences. We have 2.0 Saiyan raised on Earth Goku here on the right. And I'll bring Gohan up just for 3.0 baseline. First of all, you have all of the structural differences of 3.0 versus 2.0. And for a full read on those, check out the comparison video a few episodes back. But then, of course, there are other differences. Some of the sculpting has changed. Start at the face. I think overall the 2.0 has a softer bone structure and a little bit less depth. This is the Namek look for Goku. This is more Cell Saga or Buu Saga Goku. And that brings me to an overall comment about the art style between 2.0 and 3.0. The 3.0 sculpt does a very good job capturing the Yamamuro-led era of Dragon Ball, which is a reference to Tadayoshi Yamamuro, who was a key animator, character designer, and animation supervisor for large parts of Dragon Ball's anime history, including from the Cell Saga to the end of Buu. And then his designs very heavily influenced like the movies that came out with them, and GT, as well as early Dragon Ball Super, Battle of Gods. Only recently has the torch been passed to some new character designers. Just to give you an idea, the Yamamuro style is much blockier shapes. Like, look at the biceps. More straight lines than curved lines. Pretty heavy on detail, including like creases in the fabric or the skin, texture in the hair, and shading detail as well. That era had a lot of like 3, maybe even 4-tone shading. And his art style that art style was the dominant art style for Dragon Ball during the gap from like End of Z, GT, I don't know how many years then before Battle of Gods and Super, but every piece of Dragon Ball media that came out in between was influenced by that art style primarily, including video game cover art, magazine articles, posters, any kind of like box art on figures probably was also sort of following that handbook. And that art style, I don't know, it didn't translate super well into digital. And so a lot of early Super and Battle of Gods and Resurrection of Frieza, people have commented looks kind of plasticky and flat. And I tend to agree, and I think it's partly because of the absence of the grain filter that gives a little bit more depth to the cel-shaded animation. Just getting a little bit too sharp and straight lined with the art. I think the next lead character designer for Dragon Ball would be Shintani, who did the character designs for DBS Broly, as well as maybe at least had influence on Superhero. I don't know exactly what his role was there, but that brought back more of the early Z classic Dragon Ball designs, which were more rounded shapes, more rounded forms, less detail, and flatter shading. And it sounds like, why would you want that? But I think a big reason for it was, one, it was just fresh and more akin to other like popular shonen anime like One Piece and Naruto. Removing some detail and relaxing the character designs a little bit also meant that the animators could get more experimental with motion and camera movement and things that, like, they might draw something a little bit off model, but it's going to look awesome when the camera's moving around it. Some people don't really like that style. Some people want this more static forms to not be broken. And others say that looks too stiff or lifeless or flat, rigid, things like that. And I think that difference is also represented between the 2.0 and 3.0 bodies here. Personally speaking, I was always really influenced by the Yamamuro era Dragon Ball designs, and that's partly just because one of the reasons I really like Dragon Ball is it kind of accelerated my interest in drawing, and so I was drawing a lot of Dragon Ball characters, and the reference material that I had available was of that Yamamuro art style. So that's just what I'm most familiar with. But I don't dislike the later Shintani work either. And I think there's room for both in Dragon Ball fandom. And Saiyan Raised on Earth is kind of close to the Shintani design. The superhero Goku is like straight off the character sheet down to the facial expressions. Yeah, because the Yamamuro designs were kind of bridging the big gap until Battle of Gods, there was a lot of media that had those designs behind it. It would be very interesting to see what a 3.0 build could look like with this sort of design language. But I do kind of like having some sort of representation. I think this works really well for a Namek Goku. I'm happy that both exist.